The sun had barely risen when Joseph Anderson was already up, observing his coffee plantation stretching as far as the eye could see on the hills of Virginia. At 55 years old, each wrinkle on his face told a story of battles won, of crops that had withstood droughts and frosts, of sleepless nights worrying about the future of his land. On that Monday morning, he put on his best shirt, although it was a bit faded by time. His oldest son, Peter, a 23-year-old studying agronomy in the state capital, had insisted that he buy new clothes for the bank meeting, but Joseph refused. "I'm a simple man, son. If I'm going to ask for a loan, let them see me as I really am." Bellevue Farm wasn't the largest in the region, but it was known for the exceptional quality of its coffee. Joseph had inherited the property from his father, who in turn had received it from his grandfather. 3 generations of hard work had transformed those lands into a model of sustainable and efficient production. Now, a unique opportunity was knocking at his door. The country's largest coffee shop chain was interested in buying all of his production, but to do so he would need to expand and modernize the farm. "Dad, are you sure you don't want me to go with you?" Peter asked, as Joseph adjusted the worn belt that held up his denim pants. "No, my son, this battle is mine. Besides, I need you to supervise the harvest today. The buyers from Premium Coffee are coming tomorrow to do the first evaluation of the crop." The bank was a 40-minute drive on a dirt road from the farm. Joseph drove his old but well-maintained pickup truck, thinking about how he would present his project. He had all the numbers on the tip of his tongue: costs, profit projections, expansion plan. Peter had helped him prepare an impeccable presentation on his laptop, an investment that his son had insisted was necessary to modernize the farm's management. As he parked in front of Progress Bank, Joseph felt the weight of the stares from well-dressed employees and customers. The mirrored building contrasted with the town's traditional architecture, like a giant of glass and steel that seemed too futuristic for this piece of rural Virginia. "Good morning. I have a meeting scheduled with Dr. Richard Miller," Joseph said to the receptionist, who raised her eyebrows at his simple appearance. "Are you sure, sir?" "Dr. Richard only sees preferred clients," she replied with a doubtful tone in her voice. "Yes, ma'am, the meeting was scheduled 2 weeks ago. Joseph Anderson from Bellevue Farm." After a few uncomfortable minutes of waiting, Joseph was led to the 10th floor. The manager's office was a spacious room with a panoramic view of the town. Richard Miller, a 40-year-old man with strategically trimmed grey hair and an Italian suit, barely looked up when Joseph entered. "Sit down, Mr. Anderson," he said, quickly consulting a folder on his glass desk. "I see that you wish to request a considerable loan." Joseph straightened up in his chair and carefully opened his laptop. "Yes, sir. As you must know, my farm—" "Excuse me," Richard interrupted, "but a presentation won't be necessary. I've already analyzed your file, and frankly, the numbers don't add up. Your property is too small for the amount you're seeking. But, sir, if you'd allow me to show you the projections—" "Mr. Anderson," Richard cut him off again, now with a condescending smile, "let's save our time. You don't have the profile for a loan of this size. I suggest you look for credit lines more suitable to your level." Blood rushed to Joseph's face, but years of negotiations with buyers had taught him to maintain his composure. "Dr. Richard, I have all the necessary documents. My farm has never made a loss, and the contract with Premium Coffee—" "Look," Richard stood up, signaling that the meeting was over. "I'll be direct. Do you really think a company like Premium Coffee will maintain a contract with a producer of your caliber? They have much larger farms at their disposal. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other appointments." Joseph packed up his laptop with trembling hands. As he walked to the elevator, he heard laughter coming from the room he had just left. His face burned with humiliation, but an old determination, the same one that had made him survive so many adversities, began to grow in his chest. On the way home, he stopped by a creek that ran through his land. There, where his grandfather used to fish on resting Sundays, he made a decision. It wouldn't be that arrogant banker who would define his destiny. He had other paths to explore, other allies to seek. That night, as he dined with Peter and his youngest daughter, Megan, an 18-year-old business administration student, Joseph remained quiet and thoughtful. The children exchanged worried glances, well acquainted with their father's silence. "So, Dad, how did it go at the bank?" Megan finally asked. Joseph looked up from his plate, and for the first time since he'd returned, a small smile appeared on his lips. "Honey, sometimes God closes a door to open a window, and I think I just saw a window opening." Peter and Megan looked at each other, intrigued. They knew that gleam in their father's eyes. It was the same one he had when years ago he decided to plant a new variety of coffee that everyone said was too risky. That decision ended up transforming Bellevue into the most prestigious farm in the region. "What are you planning, Dad?" Peter questioned, curious. Joseph served himself some more rice, chewing slowly before responding. "Tomorrow, after the representatives from Premium Coffee leave, I want both of you to meet me in the office. We have a lot of work ahead, and I'll need your intelligence for what I have in mind." What manager Richard Miller didn't know as he savored his expensive whiskey that night was that his arrogance had just awakened a force that would forever change the destiny of everyone involved. Joseph Anderson might be a simple man, but he was far from a defeated one. The visit from the Premium Coffee representatives exceeded all expectations. The group of executives led by Barbara Andrews, the company's supply director, was impressed with the exceptional quality of the beans from Bellevue Farm. "Mr. Anderson, in 20 years of buying coffee, I've rarely seen a product of this level of excellence," Barbara commented as they walked among the coffee trees. The executive, a 45-year-old woman who had started her career as a bean grader, knew the market deeply. Joseph thanked her with a modest nod, but his eyes shone with pride. "It's the result of 3 generations of care for the land, Ms. Andrews. Every bean here has a story." "And that's exactly why we came," she replied, stopping to observe the fruits more closely. "Our chain is expanding internationally. We need suppliers who understand that coffee isn't just a product, it's tradition, it's art. How many acres could you make available to meet our demand?" Joseph's heart raced. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for, but the words of manager Richard still echoed in his mind. He took a deep breath before answering, "With the current structure, about 75 acres, but I have an expansion project that would triple that area in 2 years." Barbara frowned. 2 years is a long time, Mr. Anderson. We need to increase our purchase volume in 6 months at most. The Asian market won't wait." It was at this moment that Peter, who had been quietly accompanying the visit, stepped forward. "Ms. Andrews, if I may." He looked at his father, who nodded, encouraging him to continue. "We've developed an accelerated expansion plan. With the right investment, we can adapt adjacent areas that are already prepared and implement a drip irrigation system that would optimize production." The executive stopped, interested. "Go on." Peter opened his tablet, showing maps and projections he had prepared. "In 4 months, we could double production. In 6, reach the goal you need. The soil is already analyzed. We have up-to-date environmental licenses and a trained team ready to start." "Impressive," Barbara commented, analyzing the data. "But I imagine you need a considerable investment." "3 million, Joseph replied directly. "We've already tried bank financing, but—" "Say no more," Barbara interrupted him, a smile appearing on her lips. "I know bank bureaucracy well. They only see numbers in spreadsheets. They don't understand the true value of a business like yours." She paused, looking around. "Mr. Anderson, how about we continue this conversation over lunch? I heard your daughter Megan makes a chicken stew that's famous in the region." The lunch at the farmhouse extended for hours. Megan had really outdone herself in the kitchen, and between bites, negotiations advanced. Barbara revealed that Premium Coffee had a partnership program with strategic producers, which went far beyond simply buying products. "Essentially," she explained, helping herself to more stew, "we become partners. We invest capital, technology, and guarantee the purchase of production. In exchange, we have exclusivity and profit sharing." Joseph and his children exchanged significant looks. It was a tempting proposal, but the patriarch had a crucial question. And what about farm management? It remains entirely with you, Barbara assured. We don't interfere in day-to-day operations. Our interest is only in ensuring that quality is maintained. And honestly, Mr. Anderson, after tasting this coffee and seeing your work, it would be crazy to want to change anything in your production. Method. That night, after the executives left, the Anderson family gathered in the farm office, the room which mixed rustic elements with modern technology. The work of Peter and Megan's insistence was where the most important decisions were made. "It's an incredible proposal, Dad," Megan commented while organizing the notes she had taken during lunch. "But $3 million is much less than we need for the complete plan." Joseph smiled, a different gleam in his eye. "And who said that's the complete plan, my daughter?" Peter, who was typing rapidly on his laptop, looked up. "Dad, you're not thinking of—" "I'm thinking of many things, son," Joseph interrupted. "Him getting up to serve coffee for each of them. Ms. Andrews opened my eyes today. You know what she said? That banks only see numbers in spreadsheets, and she's right, but we see opportunities." Megan frowned, beginning to understand. "You want to use the partnership with Premium Coffee as leverage for something bigger?" "Exactly," Joseph confirmed, an enigmatic smile on his lips. "Peter, remember that friend of yours who works in finance in New York?" "Robert? Sure, he's always telling me that. Call him first thing tomorrow. Tell him we need a complete consultation on the regional banking market, all the data he can gather about Progress Bank." Megan's eyes widened. "Dad, you're not thinking of—" "I'm not thinking anything yet, honey," Joseph interrupted her gently. "I'm just doing what that arrogant manager should have done, studying all possibilities before making a decision." The coffee cooled in the cups as the three discussed details late into the night. Outside, the full moon illuminated Bellevue's coffee fields, a silent witness to a transformation that was just beginning. In town, the lights of Progress Bank still shone in the mirrored building, oblivious to the storm forming on the horizon. The next 3 months transformed the routine at Bellevue Farm, while the expansion works progressed at an accelerated pace with support from Premium Coffee. A silent revolution was happening in the headquarters office. Megan had converted the old tool shed into an operations center, with maps, spreadsheets, and a giant board, where she noted each step of what she affectionately called Project Checkmate. Robert Newman, Peter's friend from college days, became a constant presence at the farm. The young financial analyst, who worked at one of the country's largest investment banks, was fascinated by the plan Joseph presented to him. "It's bold, Mr. Anderson," Robert commented one afternoon as they analyzed reports. "But the numbers don't lie. Progress Bank is more vulnerable than it appears." Joseph, who had learned to navigate the world of finance with the same skill he knew his plantations, nodded. "And what did you find out about the foreign investors?" "The Mahdi Canadian group is definitely interested. They're looking for smaller financial institutions in the US, especially in regions with strong agricultural potential. And after I presented the data on Bellevue's expansion project and the partnership with Premium Coffee," Robert paused dramatically, smiling. "Let's say they're very interested in meeting you personally." Megan, who was furiously typing on her laptop, looked up. "But Dad, even with their investment, we'd still be short a considerable part of the necessary capital." Joseph smiled, pouring more coffee for everyone. "That's where the most interesting part of the plan comes in, honey. Peter, tell them what?" "You found out about the Martinez family." Peter, who had just entered the room carrying a thick folder, smiled. "The largest coffee producers in the state, and also the most indebted to Progress Bank. Don Rafael Martinez was here this morning while you were in town. He's, let's say, very receptive to our proposal." "Receptive is an understatement," Joseph added. "He's desperate. The bank is pressuring to execute the debts, and that arrogant manager, Richard Miller, is doing everything to devalue the Martinez properties before execution." Megan frowned. "But isn't that unethical? Illegal, even?" "That's exactly why Don Rafael agreed to join us," Joseph explained. "He has all the evidence of the bank's questionable practices, evidence that in the right hands could cause a real earthquake in the regional financial market." Robert whistled softly. And with the Martinez family on our side, the bank's stock value will fall like a meteor, Peter completed, especially when the news of their partnership with Bellevue and Premium Coffee leaks to the market. Joseph stood up, walking to the window. Outside, the sun was beginning to set, painting the coffee fields golden. Dr. Richard Miller made two fatal mistakes, he said, his voice calm but firm. First, he underestimated me. Second, he forgot that in rural areas, people know each other, help each other, trust each other. Megan approached her father, putting her hand on his shoulder. But Dad, there's still one detail that worries me. What if the bank discovers our plans before it's time? Joseph smiled, a smile that mixed wisdom and determination. Honey, remember what your grandfather always said. On the farm, we learned that there's no use in rushing. Everything has its time. Coffee doesn't ripen faster just because we want it to. At that moment, Robert's phone rang. He answered, listened for a few moments, and his face lit up. Mr. Anderson, the Canadians arrive next week. And there's more. They want to meet Don Raphael, too. The news was received with restrained smiles. The plan was advancing faster than they had expected. The next morning, the local newspaper would carry a small note about the partnership between Bellevue Farm and Premium Coffee. A seemingly insignificant news item for most readers, but one that would make Dr. Richard Miller choke on his imported coffee. Megan, Joseph called as everyone prepared to end another day of work. Prepare that folder with the documents we set aside. Tomorrow, I'm going to pay a visit to the bank. To the bank? Peter asked, surprised. But I thought, yes, son, it's time to give Dr. Richard the opportunity to correct his mistake. Joseph smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. After all, every good chess player knows that before checkmate, you must give your opponent one last chance to realize he's lost. As the Anderson family gathered for dinner in town, the lights of Progress Bank continued to shine in the mirrored building. But now, they seemed less imposing, less intimidating, like stars beginning to lose their shine before dawn. The day dawned with a soft mist covering the coffee fields of Bellevue. Joseph Anderson adjusted his tie, a new gift from Megan, as he watched the sunrise from the farm's porch. For the first time in his life, he wore a suit, also new, carefully chosen by his children for this special moment. Dad, Peter approached, also elegantly dressed. All the documents are here. He handed over a black leather folder, another gift from the children. Robert Newman is already in town with the Canadians, and Don Raphael confirmed he'll arrive at the bank at 10 o'clock sharp. Joseph nodded, a serene smile on his face. And your sister? Megan is finishing organizing the presentation with Ms. Andrews. They'll meet us directly at the bank. Progress Bank was especially busy that morning. The presence of foreign executives had stirred up the quiet rural town, and rumors about big negotiations were running loose through the mirrored corridors of the building. Richard Miller, the manager who had humiliated Joseph months earlier, was particularly nervous. The last few days had been tense. First, the surprising partnership between the small Bellevue farm and the giant Premium Coffee. Then, the inexplicable presence of Canadian investors interested in the local market. And now the sudden change in attitude of Don Raphael Martinez, his biggest debtor. Dr. Miller, his secretary, interrupted his thoughts. Mr. Joseph Anderson is here. He says he has an appointment. The manager frowned. Anderson, that farmer? I didn't schedule anything with... Actually, doctor, a female voice interrupted him. The meeting was scheduled by me. Barbara Andrews, the director of Premium Coffee, entered the room, followed by Megan Anderson and two distinctly foreign-looking executives. I hope you don't mind the liberty, but we needed to ensure your presence in this renegotiation. Before Richard could respond, Don Ralph Martinez entered the room accompanied by his lawyer. The patriarch of the Martinez family, known for their traditional coffee production, seemed strangely confident for someone on the brink of bankruptcy. Good morning, everyone, Joseph greeted as he entered last, his presence surprisingly imposing in his new suit. Mr. Davidson, this time I haven't come to ask for a loan. The manager stood up, trying to maintain his composure. "Mr. Anderson, I don't know what your goal is, but my goal is simple," Joseph interrupted softly, opening his briefcase. "I've come to buy your bank." The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the air conditioning. Richard Davidson laughed nervously. "Buy the bank? You're—" "Completely sane," Peter completed, entering the room with Rick Newman, who was carrying a series of documents. "And completely capable. May I explain?" Over the next 2 hours, the meticulously crafted plan by the Anderson family unfolded like a well-rehearsed symphony. Megan presented the figures from the partnership with Premium Coffee, which had transformed Belle Vista into one of the country's largest premium coffee producers in a matter of months. Don Ralph revealed that he had transferred all his debts to a new investment group, which, as it was revealed, belonged to the Anderson family and their Canadian partners. Premium Coffee, in turn, announced a massive investment plan in the region, with Belle Vista as the center of its operations. "And the most interesting part, Mr. Davidson," Joseph explained, his voice as calm as ever, "is that your own bank financed all of this without knowing. When you refused my loan, you made me realize I needed to change my strategy. I didn't need a loan. I needed the entire bank." Richard Davidson turned pale as he grasped the magnitude of what was happening. All the pieces fit together, the deliberate devaluation he had caused in the bank's shares to pressure the Martinez family had made the institution vulnerable to a hostile takeover. "The shareholders have already approved the sale," Rick Newman announced, handing over a final set of documents. "Progress Bank now belongs to the Belle Vista Group, in partnership with our Canadian investors." Joseph stood up, adjusting his new suit. "Mr. Davidson, 3 months ago you told me I didn't have the profile to do business with this bank. You were right." He paused, a serene smile on his lips. "I didn't have the profile to be a customer. I had the profile to be the owner." The former manager sank into his chair, defeated. Megan approached, handing him an envelope. "Your letter of resignation, Mr. Davidson. But don't worry, unlike you, we believe in second chances. There's a junior manager position at our new rural branch. The salary is lower, but you'll have the opportunity to learn about humility, respect, and the true value of work." That afternoon, as news of the acquisition of Progress Bank spread through the town, Joseph returned to his farm. He changed out of his suit into his usual clothes and went for a walk among the coffee trees, as he did every day. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Peter and Megan found him there, contemplating the plantation. "What now, Dad?" Megan asked, hugging him. Joseph smiled, the same serene smile his father and grandfather had when they looked at that land. "Now, my daughter, we continue our work. Because in the end, it doesn't matter if you own a bank or a farm. What matters is never losing the essence of who you are." And so, as the stars began to dot the sky above Belle Vista Farm, a new era began. An era where respect, humility, and wisdom proved to be more valuable than any bank account. Dear listeners, we hope that Joseph's and his family's journey has touched your hearts and shown that true wealth lies in strength of character and perseverance. To continue experiencing inspiring stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. Let us know in the comments which city you're watching from and share your own stories of overcoming adversity. After all, each of us has a special story to tell. See you in the next video.